Shalom, friends. Bob here in Nashville. I love it when God does something that's so obvious that only He could have organized, and I get to see that. It's pretty remarkable. You might remember the story in the book of Acts when Philip, who's one of those early disciples, is out and about, and he encounters a eunuch from Ethiopia who worked in the court of Candace, and he walked up to that chariot where the eunuch was, and the eunuch was reading a portion of scripture. And Philip says to him, do you know what you're reading? And he said, how can I unless somebody explains it to me? And the portion he was reading was from Isaiah chapter 53 about a suffering servant. Philip explains to him that prediction in Isaiah is actually related to Yeshua, and according to the scripture, he preaches Yeshua or Jesus to the eunuch. The eunuch, while he's riding with Philip, says, look, water, what prevents me from being baptized? And so Philip baptizes him. And then the Spirit of the Lord lifts up Philip and takes him to Azotus. And that's the end of the story. And you think, that is so weird that Philip should rock up on a guy who's reading the Bible and doesn't understand it. Well, that very thing happened to me just hours ago this morning as I was in a cafe here in Nashville, and I walked over to three fellas who had Bibles open. They're in a cafe, it's Nashville. That's not a surprise that they have a Bible open. People do that all over town here. It seems to be pretty Bible rich. Well, one of them was reading from the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 22, and said something about this business of the Son of David. And I know this text. So this is when Yeshua challenges these fellas and says, the Messiah, whose son is he? And they answer and say, the Son of David, which of course is what Jewish people to this day say. Moshiach ben David, Messiah will be the Son of David. And then Yeshua answers them and says, well then how does David call him, the Messiah, Lord? And he quotes the 110th Psalm. The Lord said to my Lord, sit at my right hand until I make your enemies your footstool. That is so weird. What a weird quote. And of course, I know that text. I've preached that text. I turned to these three fellows and said, do you understand what you're reading? No. How can I? Said the fellow. I just asked the other fellow, and neither of them knew. They were looking in the commentaries. So I explained that the second Lord in that verse is, of course, a different noun than the Tetragrammaton said to Adoni, said to my Lord. So there's two Lords, and if you know anything about Judaism, you know there's only one Lord. So this is God giving his kingdom to someone else. Sit at my right hand until I make your enemies your footstool. This cites Psalm 110. This is a citation that alludes to Daniel 7. Later on. There's so much packed in there. And in fact, in verse 4, I think, of Psalm 110, it says, I've sworn by myself, I think, I've sworn that you are a priest forever according to the order of Melchizedek. So the author of Hebrews chapter 7 makes a big deal about this. Well, you get the idea. I sat down with these boys and had a Bible class with them, and that was it. And I shook hands as we were done, and they were gobsmacked. And I thought, this is so Ethiopian eunuch. None of the three needed to be baptized. They were all believers. But here they were studying a text. I rocked up on them. Do you understand what you're reading? How can I? And here I spoke from a Hebraic or Jewish point of view. And I just love how God organizes and weaves our times. Our times, our space, our lives are in God's hands, even yours, even today. Shalom.